I've been capturing images on my YouTube video for quite some time now, and I realise I don't always give the full details behind the image. So in this video I'm going to look at some images from my past few videos, look at them in more detail and discuss why it's important for us to all do this. But before I do that, I just wanted to talk briefly about my YouTube channel, where it's going and how you can help me grow it. So first of all, I really like the direction that my YouTube channel has gone, and if you've been following me recently you'll realise I'm talking a lot more about the mental well-being benefits of landscape photography. That's mainly down to the support and the comments that I get from a lot of you guys, the stories that you've been telling me which are so inspiring to me too. That's helped shape where this channel is going to. So why do I want to grow my channel? Well, what I've learned is that there's a lot more people out there that had felt exactly how I did, or that there's people that are suffering all sorts of stress and difficult conditions that find it reassuring and helpful to hear about other people's stories. And I want to be able to share that on my channel in some sort of way. I'm not exactly sure how yet, but that's the way that I want it to go. So you can help me grow this community and make sure that we're reaching those people out there that might need help by doing a few things. So commenting and liking my videos shows YouTube that it's engaging content, and which makes it more likely that they're going to suggest it. One of the most important things that you can do as well is share my videos. So share it on Facebook, on Twitter or whatever, reaching out to your broader social network, because you never know who might need to see this kind of thing, or who might benefit or find it helpful. So if you share it, the more views I get, again, the more relevant and the more suggested it becomes on YouTube, and that's going to be really helpful in terms of growth. But thank you to everybody that does comment and that does leave feedback and that does subscribe, because that's helped support me and helped shape the way that the channel is going. But of course, I know that you also want to see me go out and take photographs, so this is all going to be incorporated whilst I'm out doing landscape photography. So now, why is it important to look back at some of the images? Well, firstly, I'm going to look at a couple of my snow images from my blizzard video when we were trapped in Northumberland, me and my family. The first image probably got the biggest vote for people's favourite in the comments, and it's of this pine tree. Now, I really like this because of the movement in the snow that was captured there, because it really shows the conditions. Now, this pine tree was just a couple of 100 metres away from the cottage that we stayed in, and it acted as a barometer for how severe the weather was. If we could see it, we knew it wasn't snowing that much, and if we couldn't, we knew that it was a bit of a blizzard coming in. But after recording the video, which I'll link to up there by the way, I was walking back to the cottage and I saw this scene, and I thought that it summed up exactly what was going on at the time, and so I worked on capturing it. I guess maybe the shutter speed was a little bit too slow. I guess the streaks of snow look a bit like scratches, and it might have been better if they weren't so severe. But what I do like is the way that it is horizontal, and you can really see how bad it was, and the fact that the tree almost looks like somebody running away from it, with this being their head, and here we've got an arm out the front and out the back, like they're really pegging it away. The next image, if you've seen that video, you'll see a part where I look over my shoulder and I pause for a second because I've spotted something, and it was this scene. Now, it was a group of sheep that had recently been fed by the farmer, and they obviously didn't have access to food, but with the snow on the ground. But they weren't the only ones, because there was a group of birds that were waiting in the distant tree beyond, and occasionally swooping in and trying to grab some of the sheep's feed. And so it told this story of just how everybody was a little bit desperate in terms of trying to survive in these conditions. Things that I might have done differently, or things that I wish were slightly different about this image, is mainly down to a bit of scale and depth. So if the sheep were slightly closer in the foreground, and it would add a bit of depth to the image, you would see the birds off in the distance, and they would be larger in the foreground as they came to circle above the sheep. And I think that would have added a bit more of the story to this image. Also, I wish I was able to brave the cold a little bit longer, because then I might have captured more of the birds flying across the sky, and that again would have emphasised the story a little bit more. The next couple of images are from my video which I called Missing the Light. In that video I revisited a place I'd been to a week or so before, and the images that I showed were the ones that I captured the few weeks previous when I caught the good light. Now this first image is of a tree, and I almost didn't spot this. I was walking along the riverbank and the sun was shining in my eyes, and on the other side of the river I did just catch a glimpse of these strange streaks going through the trees. And at first I thought that it was quite unusual that this tree would only have branches that were growing in one direction. But then I realised that it was the angle of the sun, and it was the thin twigs that were just catching the light on one side with the way that the sun was shining through, and it created this wonderful abstract effect. And so I just had to capture it. I've cropped in quite tightly on this tree because even though the whole opposing riverbank was lit up in the same way, without the tree there wouldn't have been much interest in the image. It would have been maybe slightly too abstract and difficult to understand what it was. But it was very eye-catching, and this tree stood out amongst a few of the others, and that's why I picked it. A few things that I would do differently though. At the top there's some of the sky poking through, which is maybe a little bit distracting, and I probably would aim to crop that out if I was to do this again. But otherwise it was one of those moments that it was right place, right time. I wouldn't have seen this if it had been 15 minutes later, or the sun hadn't been shining, and so it's just one of those moments that's really lucky to catch, and I really like the image. The other image that I featured in that video was of this pine tree. So it's really distinctive in shape and very dominant in its size, and so that's why it takes up a lot of the frame here. The light was just perfect, and I loved the way it was so soft, and the way it caught on the green needles here. It just made everything look warm and fuzzy. And then I noticed the tree off in the distance and the wooded hill, and it was just like this trinity of things being lit by this gorgeous light. One or two things that I wish were slightly different about it are that on the left hand side here it looks like I've cropped off the edge of the tree, but if you look a little bit closer, the tree itself does finish closer to the edge of the frame. It's just some distant trees in the background that continue, and they look like they're part of this tree, if that makes sense. If I was going to take this image again, I would work to try and eliminate that. But other than that, maybe as well if I was slightly lower down and had the tree fully backgrounded by the sky, it might make a little less confusion, but then I might not have got the same composition. The final image I'm going to talk about is from last week's video. I'd gone to the beach to look for an image which summed up the feeling that I get whilst at the seaside, which is that it is this great big broad and expansive and open free space which makes you just feel so liberated in all kinds of ways. And I didn't really find exactly the shot I was looking for, so instead I decided to walk around a little bit and just enjoy the surroundings, because I hadn't been to this place for quite some time. And I got lost amongst the sand dunes, and then figured that I wasn't really going to capture an image. I probably wasn't going to manage before the sun went down. So I just sat down on the dunes amongst the marram grass and enjoyed the sun setting. But then I did see the grass lit up in such a warm light that I thought that I would have to try and capture something. And so I started to look around a little bit more for groups of grasses that kind of looked like they were looking out towards the sunset. And I found this clump of grass that had a bit of space in front of it, and decided to make that my main subject. And as you can see, it's getting bathed in that warm light just as I was, and that's how I felt at the time. Something that I really like about this, I decided to make the highlights really quite bright and almost overexposed. Now there's a thing that happens when you're at the coast during sunset, when it's a relatively cloudless day, a bit of wind, and it blows up a bit of spray and diffuses all the light around it, and so when the sun starts setting through that, it gets this really nice warm glow. And so this is why I decided to almost blow out the highlights on that side, because it just gave that sense of that brilliant light. But what I don't really like about this image is the fact that my footprints are in it on the left hand side. Now I could have photoshopped them out, but I don't think my skills are good enough to do that, so that's why they're left in. And also with the wind that was blowing in, it's kind of blown the grass slightly out of frame, and just like the tree in that other image, it looks like that they're kind of getting cropped out. It just looks a bit strange. And so next time I would make sure that I framed it so that even any movement from the grass would mean that the whole thing was in the frame. So that's it. I feel like I went through some of those images quite quickly, but it's important to spend a bit more time looking at your images and understanding the things that you like about them and the things that you would do differently next time, because knowing those things and understanding those things can help us make those changes the next time we're in that situation, which ultimately helps us improve and become better photographers. Now, I hope you liked this video. Let me know in the comments below if you did, or give it a thumbs down if you didn't, just so I can get your feedback, because I'm thinking of including something like this a little bit more regularly as a second upload each week, where I will look at the image I caught in the previous video and discuss it in a bit more detail, tell you a bit more of the story about how I captured it, maybe the camera settings and post-processing if that's what you're going to be interested in. And in case you don't know or you've been missing them, my videos go out every Thursdays in the evening in the UK, so in other parts of the world that's going to be at a different time obviously, but if you are subscribed then you can click the bell to get notifications every time I put an upload out. For now, thanks very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.